Hey guys, OCB Communications, and in honor of Veterans Day, I thought I would actually check out a movie that I thought would be appropriate for today, and that is Uncommon Valor. And as you can hear in the background, I just finished it. This is the end credits song, Brothers in the Night by Ray Kennedy, and it's a really heartfelt, nice song. It's a tribute to, those who, basically to those who were lost, in the war, fighting for our country, and also for those who, might have survived. And this film, I've checked out multiple lists online about films to watch on Veterans Day, and this film is never on any of those lists. But The Patriot, The Hurt Locker, Black Hawk Down, they're all good movies and stuff, but this movie, I think it's a great film. It's underrated. Nobody's talking about this movie, and it's really too bad. I'd have to say it's one of my favorites. It's a great, one of the best mixes of, fun and also drama. I mean, I cried like a baby at the end of this movie. I'm not kidding. Like, I choked up, tears, sniffles, the whole shebang, and that's a testament to how powerful the film is. It's actually got impact. It's got a really good impact, to it, and it's got a good message. Basically the gist of the plot is that it's about, Gene Hackman plays this character who he plays Colonel Jason Rhodes, who's a man who is obsessed, with basically finding his son. His son was missing in action in Vietnam, and he's spending like multiple, years and almost a decade on its own just trying to find his son. And so basically what he does is he gets together the old band, the old team, basically the surviving members of his son's platoon, and he gets them together to basically go on a rescue mission to rescue his son, because he gets information from people higher up that give him information that there's a internment camp in Laos, and they're basically saying that his son could be there. And so he basically raises money, gets help from a friend of his who has money, and McGregor's played by Robert Stack. And he basically then gets, like I said, he gets the other members of the platoon back together. He finds Blaster, who's played by Reb Brown, in a really cool role. I'd have to say this is his best acting performance. I think Reb Brown did a really good job. Pretty much everybody in this film did a really good job. So he runs together Blaster, Reb Brown, who's the explosives expert. Then Colonel Rhodes then gets Fred Ward Wilkes, who's basically, I guess you could say he's the stealth guy, the guy who goes around, and he takes care of, he's basically a trained killer, so to speak. Really good at hiding and, things like that. And then basically he's kind of like, the precursor to Solid Snake, and so in that respect. And then basically they go and get the other members, Tim Thomerson, who his character Charts, who is basically as a helicopter pilot. Also get Harold Sylvester Johnson, who's he's another helicopter pilot. So they get two helicopter pilots to go along with Gene Hackman's character, who can also fly a helicopter. And also there's a new recruit to the team, Kevin Scott, who's played by Patrick Swayze, and he's helping out because his dad is over MIA. His dad is missing in action in Vietnam. So it's a pretty simple plot, but the way that it's approached is so much fun. It's so much fun, and it's also good amount of action, and it's also got a good amount of intrigue and suspense, and that whole idea of Americans not really caring, like American politics and politicians not caring about POWs that are over in Vietnam, you know, that might still be alive because it doesn't fit their bottom line, you know, because it's not really, you know, profitable. That's really honestly a pretty fucked up idea, and honestly, I can totally see that happening. And the idea that, you know, these soldiers, guys, you know, they end up basically going in, you know, these former soldiers, these veterans teaming together to go get, you know, try to basically go get people who are left behind is a really, really good idea. And I think it's really, really well done in this film. I know it's kind of hard, like it's not much of a review, right? Well, because it's like I said, it's a great film. It's just not a movie that has like a plot within a plot within a plot. The plot is basically these guys, these 7 guys, team up together to go rescue POWs who are lost and who are, you know, missing in action in Vietnam. And along the way, basically a majority of the film is them training, you know, on an exact replica of the POW camp. It was created by Robert Stack's character McGregor. And these are some really fun moments. Of course, even when you first get introduced to some of the people, like Randall texts Cobb, I can't believe it. Forgot about Sailor. I forgot about mentioning Sailor. I mentioned everybody else, but I forgot about Sailor. Reason why I forgot about Sailor is because he's so awesome, I wanted to save him for last. So Sailor, Randall texts Cobb, he's awesome in this. He's a scene stealer. He's got some really fun lines. When you first meet him, he's basically doing yoga in a cell, holding cell, and basically what happens is he gets, basically this is when Col Rhodes basically tracks him down and tries to get, he knows that he's one of the best members of the platoon and he wants him to, you know, join his team. And basically I love this line that Randall Tex Cobb says here. He's like, "Man, I'm so far beyond that shit now. I get energy from the air. I talk to polar bears. I converse with paramecium. Man, I fuck nuclear waste." So I love that line. It's so much fun. And so basically what happens is he ends up joining the team and they end up basically training. They train on this exact replica and they have fun. I like this scene where basically you have Sailor competing, you know, the guys are competing to see who's going to chop down a tree the fastest, and there's a competition between Patrick Swayze's character and Sailor, and, you know, Swayze's like taking too long, and so, you know, Randall Cobb cuts down the tree real quick and then goes and cuts down Patrick Swayze's tree, and it's like, boy, you know, there ain't no quit. Can't quit. So there's a basically then they form a little bit of sort of rivalry there. Ends up in a scene where they actually later on they actually get in a little bit of fight, which basically is like, boy, you using that Oriental martial bullshit on me is gonna get real expensive. And then of course it's like, boy, you just bought a whole can of whoop ass. Just like, it's a lot of fun, a lot of fun. And then basically, now I like the never scene too, where Fred Ward's character Wilkes, he's basically Col Rhode sets it up so he basically is going to use his techniques and his expertise to basically hide and take out, you know, the rest of the platoon. And he basically, you know, finds them, he tricks them, puts these signs on around their necks. One says, like, for Patrick Swayze, it says ex-rookie. Another one says history, you know. So basically, you know, he's basically technically killed them all. And I really love Reb Brown's reaction. He gets Reb Brown, and Reb Brown's like, oh shit, I'm dead. So then, speaking of Reb Brown, I also have fun with Blaster, the scene where he's talking about, you know, how basically what he would do, how he would set the explosives. He's like, I got one over here, and they're gonna go over there, and boom, and they're gonna go over here, and they're gonna have the third one, and they're gonna go boom. You know, we're just having a lot of fun. And since these guys are having so much fun, you, as an audience member, are having a lot of fun too, despite this really serious, the serious plot, really, about, you know, it's really mainly about trying to rescue these POWs who were, stuck in Vietnam, with no food and working, getting worked ragged and, have no hope of coming home. And the film actually mentions there was about 25, it's estimated about 2,500 soldiers that were American soldiers that were said to be missing in action and still possibly alive and being kept in Vietnam as hostages. 2,500. That's a big amount that's a big number. Now I don't know how big that number is now. It's probably a little bit lower, sadly, because really honestly, there wasn't a lot of expeditions. This was a Hollywood sort of fantasy of going over there and saving, the boys that were left behind. But I think there might have been a few missions or whatever. I don't know for sure. I'm not an expert when it comes to that, but this film it really approaches that really well. I know it's hard for me to really go super in depth on this movie. I really love the movie. It's just it's not a really plot driven film. It's a movie you need to see to actually appreciate how great it is. I can say how great it is all I want to, but you have to see it, to understand truthfully why it's such a classic. So basically what happens is they successfully, get through the training exercises, and they're getting ready to go into Laos and start the mission, but the CIA gets involved and ends up confiscating all their weapons. So then they end up having to figure out a different way of getting weapons. So they have to get a bargain basement deal because in order to use the little bit of money that they have that Robert Stack gave them earlier. So they use that to buy some basically bargain, weapons. And then Colonel Rhodes gets the help from someone he knew back in the war who was a former drug dealer or whatever in Vietnam. And he basically sends his 2 daughters, and he also goes along with them, into Laos. And so the first sort of sequence where they basically enter some camp or whatever that's been devastated from mustard gas. And then it gets a harrowing sequence where basically they end up getting attacked, and they end up getting away. They end up basically surviving it, but at a price, because one of the daughters ends up dying. So then they have a little funeral for the daughter, and then the father says, "No, we need to keep on going," and so they go into Laos. And basically they split up into 2 teams. One team with Gene Hackman and the helicopter pilots are going to go in and get the helicopters, and the other team's going to stay behind. And Blaster is his job is to, provide a distraction as well as, set up explosives around the camp, and also his main job is to blow up the bridge. Well, because there's a bridge in the camp, and the bridge needs to be blown up so the Viet Cong can't escape with the prisoners across the field out of the camp. So basically what happens is it takes longer than expected for Gene Hackman and company to get the helicopters. And so Reb Brown has to end up improvising, so he blows up, basically, detonates some explosives, sets a diversion, and then he tries to detonate the bridge, then it doesn't work. One of the explosives was a dud, so it only blows up half the bridge. So now he's at a predicament, and now he realizes, all right, I like this scene, it's really well handled, and he basically realizes, okay, I'm going to have to sacrifice myself. So he goes in up there to the bridge, shooting a bunch of bad guys or whatever, and basically he grabs the last explosive pack that he has, and he arms it, and he throws it on the the side of the bridge that's not blown up yet, and signature Reb Brown yell, ah, and shoots it, and then he basically sacrifices himself. He blows up the bridge, the only way that he knew how, the only way that was available in order to, basically keep the plan going, to basically make it so there's still hope to save whatever POWs that are there. and he sacrifices himself for the good of many. And I admit I got a little bit choked up too when Blaster died. Reb Brown was awesome in this. It was too bad, to see him die. It sucked to see him die. And then basically what happens is the rest of the team, then they converge and they go in to get the other pals. And Gene Hackman's character, Col Rhode, is looking for his son, Frank, and he's crying out to his son, trying out his name. And they rescue all these other pals, and Frank isn't in the group. And then one of the pals that knows what's going on, he tells him where there's another, where's the other soldier? There's one more. And he says, okay, he's in the pit. So he goes in, basically he goes in, basically calling out his son's name. It opens up in one of the pits and finds Robert Stack's son. And that's when he realizes, you could see the look on Gene Hackman's face, he realizes that, well, this means that my son didn't make it then. But then he realizes I still got a job to do. And he said, because Robert Stack said one line that I thought was good, where he told Gene Hackman, I would give everything that I have for just 1 hour with my son. And he grabs, Robert Stack's son. They get away. And but basically it's too dangerous to get back to the helicopter because there's a bunch of gunfire all over the place. Is not safe. So Randall takes Cobb's character, Sailor, decides that he's got to do something about it. And he puts himself in the line of fire. And he ends up getting... I get kind of sad just thinking about it, really. So he ends up basically getting behind the gun in the tower and shoots a bunch of guys. To basically pave the way for Gene Hackman and Robert Stack's son. And he ends up getting gunned down. And he ends up basically sacrificing himself. He takes the grenade around his neck and he pulls the pin and he dives off the top of the tower and, basically explodes. And died admirably, though, but it's just, the film does a great job. Like I said, I'm getting choked up thinking about the characters that I don't even know personally, and the film just does a fantastic job making you care for these characters. So when they are in these scenarios where, it's, life or death, it really hurts. It really hurts to see them die. And so then the scene that really gets me every time, though, is when after they have made it, they've escaped, they've gotten away. Blaster and the Sailor have given their lives for the cause, and Col Rhode is there on the in the helicopter, and he asks Robert Stack's son, what about my son? And he says, Robert Stack's son, he says that, Frank, he was sick, and he tried, but he didn't make it. He died. And, just that, I just cry like a baby. I was just choked up, man. I'm still kind of choked up thinking about it. And then Gene Hackman, great performance, great actor anyway, and it wasn't like blubbering or anything, but it was a subtle, effective, reaction and moment that was really well done. He tears up a little bit, chokes up, and grabs Robert Stack's son and holds him. He hugs him, and shakes his head in grief, knowing that his son didn't make it, but they did risk their lives to at least give these other soldiers, these other poor souls, another chance at life. And that was enough for him to, basically justify this mission. And then the end of the movie is basically the soldiers have come home, and they're reunited with their families, and Gene Hackman gets reunited with his wife, and they hold hands and freeze frame, and then Ray Kennedy's Brothers in the Night, and that's the end of an absolutely fantastic, wonderful, awesome film that was really, really excellent. And it affects me emotionally in ways that a lot of movies don't. I think it's because it's such an entertaining movie. These characters are so fun. And when you find out, when things start to get really real, and when the battle starts to get, when it's not just pretend anymore, and when these guys end up basically dying, it hurts. So, and I really like this film. I think it's an excellent movie. It's underrated. I think it deserves special edition. There's not even a trailer on this DVD. There's not even a trailer. I mean, how disrespectful. This movie actually has a fan base. I remember when I first posted the song Brothers in the Night a while ago on one of my channels, I actually had a request from an actual a son of a veteran, a Vietnam vet, and he wanted to see if I could find a copy of the song for his dad for Veterans Day, or I think it was either Veterans Day or his birthday, or either way, I was honored. I was absolutely honored to make a Veterans Day, make a vet happy, and I was able to do that, and that remember that being a really nice moment for me personally. I was able to, for just finding a song, able to add a little bit of a joy to a man who, went through hell over in Vietnam, and that's more than enough, for me, really. And I think this film does a great job showing the camaraderie of these vets, and and also showing the horror and basically the danger that they end up, the danger that they end up coming across when they're at war. And great, just a great film, great directing. Ted Kotcheff, who a year before had done First Blood. I would probably say I like First Blood, but I would say actually now I'd probably say I like this more than First Blood. And I really like First Blood. I just say I like this a little bit more. The writing by Joe Gayton was anything but gay. It was fantastic. It was really well done. These characters were realistic. They were fun. Fun-loving, fun guys. They were tough guys you rooted for. You wanted them all to live. You didn't want any of them to die. And I think that's what a lot of movies are missing nowadays. It has fun with itself, but at the same time, it knows when it needs to be real. It knows when it needs to take things seriously. And I think a lot of movies nowadays, especially the war genre, just forget about the fun entirely. And they just go with the gritty realism and the blood and guts and the tough side and basically they don't look at the lighter side of it. And I think that's sorely lacking, because there is a camaraderie, there is a sense of brotherhood with soldiers and their platoons. And that seems like that's kind of forgotten a little bit in movies nowadays. So, I think this is one of the best war films. I think it's definitely one of the best Vietnam movies. I'd say I like it more than Platoon. I haven't seen Hamburger Hill, but I would definitely say I enjoy this more than Platoon, because Platoon's an entirely different type of movie. This doesn't necessarily glorify war, because it does show that war can, as a cost of war, you can have men and women that are just lost behind enemy lines with no lifeline to home, and that's basically the main thing about the movie that really hits me home, hits hard, is that this is a real thing, that there are POWs over there are probably POWs right now who are aging, old, lived their whole lives after, the war as basically unofficial citizens of Vietnam, as being tortured or beaten or forced into labor. And that's a tough thing to think about. But it's a good thing to think about too, especially today, on Veterans Day, and considering what all our veterans go through. And I think that this film is a good testament to them. It's a good testament to those veterans who have died on those battlefields and the veterans that have survived those battlefields. And through this film, you're able to get a look at in some ways, what it was like, but, without being super, super depressing. Because there's hope here. And I like that. And I like I like the aspect of hope. And I'm pretty sure that any veteran or anybody who's over there in Iraq or right now would agree with Hope too. They're probably thinking bad thoughts and dark thoughts, but at the same time they're trying to think of home, and hope that they'll make it out alive. And that's something to think about. So I really don't know what to say about Uncommon Valor, except I rate it at 5 stars. I'm going to give it 5 out of 5, nothing less than that. I think it's an excellent movie. It's an emotionally powerful film when it needs to be. It's action-packed when it needs to be. It's also a lot of fun when it needs to be. It's got a top-flight cast, solid direction, a decent score by James Horner, and overall just a spectacular, solid, really underrated movie that I think that if you haven't seen it yet, check it out. So anyway, folks, thanks for watching my review of Uncommon Valor, and I'll see you guys later, and happy Veterans Day.